What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bird's Eye View. I am your host, Erica McCall, aka Bird, because my last name is McCall. Oh, my guests always giggle on that part.
I didn't get that forever. I didn't even get that. I was like, there's some other reason for this.
So,
sorry.
For those who do not know, I am a fifth-year professional basketball player. I just wrapped up my fifth year. I'm home right now as a free agent. Funny because we have my agent on as the guest, but we'll get into that in a few seconds. I played in Hungary for 4 years, Turkey for 1 year, and soon to be announced where I'll be playing next season. I think it'll be coming out probably by the time that this episode comes out. So we'll talk about that next episode. But the reasoning for starting this podcast is because I'm here to educate everyone on what the professional lifestyle is as a basketball player, as a female basketball player. I mean, we go through some highs and some lows, as Chantel Lavender talked about last week. And so I'm just here to highlight those. I'm here to amplify those. I'm here to tell the stories. I'm here to share other stories. And so that's what Bird's Eye View podcast is, guys. So we've had a lot of questions. I was on Twitter and just scrolling, and I saw everyone was talking about the CBA. What's the CBA? What all it entails? And I was like, man, and people were asking me like, hey, what does this mean? I'm like, I don't know. I asked my agent. And so I thought it was a brilliant idea, a little pat on the back for myself, for wanting to bring on my agent to do an episode to answer CBA questions, to answer overseas questions, just all encompassing professional basketball questions. This guy has been in the game for a long time. Matter of fact, let me run down his bio. His name is Mike Cound. Mike Cound.
Yeah.
Hype him up. He has been representing professional players since 1994. Is that correct? 1994?
Yeah, there's a long story there, but oh my God.
Didn't mean to date you, but I'm sorry, I had to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, you can say representing. When I was 26 then, so I was like, yeah, I was figuring it out. So yeah, I was learning.
1994. Yeah. I love it.
1994.
He's negotiated over 800 contracts in the WNBA for players and negotiated from more than 45 universities in 15 countries. He's negotiated more than 2,500 contracts in Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and South America. He is a decorated legend in this game. The best agent, in my opinion, of course. I like to call him Uncle Mike because he's a part of my family. He represents myself, my sister, DeWanna Bonner, legends like Swin Cash. He's just a legend in the game. I'm just so grateful to have you on the podcast. Welcome, Uncle Mike. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, girl. That is like I'm all blushing here. It's not only the beer that has me red.
Well, no, I'm super grateful to have you on. You're so knowledgeable about this game, the ins and outs of it, the contracts, all that. I know if I ever have an issue, I go straight to you. You are, make everything easy for us to understand. For his players, he's always sending out mass, messages that just breaks down all the ins and outs that are going on in this game, like the CBA, like what's going on in Russia, anything of that nature. So he's constantly breaking down for us, just wanting to keep us in the know, keeping us educated on, what's going on in the world, in our jobs. And so I thought it would be perfect to bring him on as a guest, and he's going to be answering some questions that actually you guys wrote in on Twitter, that I asked you guys to write in about the CBA, about overseas, any and everything. So that's what we'll be answering today. All right, fans, we've just got a call in from one of our most it's just like our most valued fan. Her name is the one and only Sydney Weiss. She had just called in to ask a few questions to our guest, our agent. We like to call him Uncle Mike. Mike Count. So Sid is going to give the questions for our lovely game today, it's just going to be titled The Agency.
I thought you were going to say your lovely guest, but okay.
I see what you did there, Mike.
For those who don't know, Sid has been a co-host. She has been a guest. She's family to the Bird's Eye View podcast. So thank you, Sid. We're just gonna have you on for this, asking Uncle Mike these questions. She came with them herself, so I'm gonna let her take the lead, and I'm just gonna sit back and laugh.
Oh my goodness,
they're funny.
Oh my.
Well, thank you, Bird, for having me on. It's great to be back. I am such a fan of your work. I need your autograph one day. All right, Uncle Mike, are you ready for these questions?
I don't know.
Yeah, you aren't ready. Here we go. Okay, first one. If you were an agent for a rock star / musician / famous person outside of sports, who would you want to represent?
Well, based on commission, I would go with one of the Kardashians. But
really?
Whoa.
Yeah, because that's, they're in the billions. That was just a financial play right there.
Yeah, that's fair.
But man, I'm gonna go with Brad Pitt. The dude's too cool. And I need some of that rubbing off on me.
You don't think you're cool enough, Uncle Mike?
Well, it's too much Wolverine, as I've heard.
Story for another time.
Or yeah. What would you have expected me to did you think I'd go WNBA on that answer?
No, because you're supposed to go. I think I wanted you to say JB, so I would have a connection to him. So thanks for being selfish, but that's okay. I'm happy
I expected someone like that. I honestly expected like what's he's like the an actor. He's like a
Hugh Jackman.
No, not Hugh Jackman. Jack Nicholas.
From The Shining.
Love the man. Yes, from The Shining.
Yes, someone like that.
You can't handle the truth, right?
Right.
I didn't know you were in that film, Mike. That was really good.
But you know what? Brad Pitt makes sense because he was in the Agency movie, right? He was was it Moneyball?
He was in Moneyball. He wasn't in. Yeah, I could say Tom Cruise because I just saw Top Gun and he was Jerry Maguire. I should have said that, right? And he's got the money play. I'm changing my answer. Tom Cruise.
Okay, so final answer. We got Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Did you guys see Top Gun yet?
Not yet.
No.
Oh my. I didn't even really like the first one, but this one is really good.
Did you cry?
I did cry. I did cry like 3 times. There's because it's about a brotherhood. I'm not going to give away the ending, but his wingman in the first movie died. And I don't know why, but because my brother died, there were so many things that came, like every time something that they grabbed you, I kept on choking up, man. But it was really the action, everything about it was just really well done. Forced plot line, yes. Forced, they're going to go with the, a structure for the plot line. You already know what's coming, but man, really, really good movie. I'm going to wait probably for video, but I might even go to the theater again. I really liked it.
Wow. Shout out Top Gun.
Top Gun. Yeah. Go see it.
Everyone go see Top Gun. Okay, so next question. What is a book or a podcast that you recommend that has helped you in your career and or life?
Good one.
A book or a podcast? I'm sorry, I forget the name, but there's 3 books from Obama, and the second one, I forgot the name, but I love that one. I'm not going to say it helped me in this career. Podcasts, I can't think of any. There's been a couple of bird podcasts that probably really boosted the knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Like it popped me up where I needed to get to.
Yep.
As if you already know any of the stuff we were talking about.
But I'm shamelessly, I read since the COVID started, I've read something in the neighborhood of 460 books.
Mike, you need to talk to Bird about her reading habits, okay? Because she needs to follow your lead. This girl does not read.
But you guys both know about my naps, right?
Yes.
That's
All right.
Mike, that's a great lead-in. That's my next question. So I'm going to ask it right now. What's your nap schedule?
But I read to go to fall asleep. So I'll be up there on my little Kindle at night and I'll read 15 chapters and then I'll fall asleep. And then when I take my nap, I'll read again. So I am a reader, but those are mostly spy novels. So they're brainless. Yeah, it's not a good answer to your question.
No, reading is reading to me. And that's a no. 15 chapters is a no.
I'm very impressed with 15 chapters. That's like, how do you stay awake that long?
I'm a speed reader. Yeah.
No,
okay, so I would like to know, the people would also like to know what your nap schedule is like.
My nap schedule. I usually get up at 5 or 6, and you guys are a lot of work. So,
how dare you get close to the camera like that?
Break down your schedule as an agent. What do you do?
Yeah. So I get up, and most of the years, you guys are over in Europe, so you're 6, 7, 8 hours ahead of me. And so when I get up at 5, everybody's already rocking. So in fact, some players still aren't awake yet when I get up because they're getting up at 11, 12, right? Mm-hmm. But usually I just live, as you both know, I live on WhatsApp. So I usually have 25 WhatsApps that I need to answer. So it's like boom, 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 putting out fires or answering your questions. Hey, what's up? I tweaked something, or I didn't get paid. I'm 10 days late, or, whatever. So we're taking care of all that. And then usually by noon, I'm hitting the wall. So I need to go knock out a little siesta, and that's been great. And I really feel it if I don't. So hopefully after an hour or so, I can get up and knock out some more things and then try to work out and take the dogs out, cook dinner, whatever. So
yeah, show them.
He's flexing his muscles, y'all.
Yeah, that's my day. And it's not just 5 days. There's no off day for us. Then again, there's no on day. The good thing for almost 30 years, the good thing is I'm never off, but I'm never necessarily on. Like I can pretty much choose where I go when I want to go. But as long as I have this guy, I'm in my office.
The good old phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your office is in your pocket.
Wow.
That's a quote. Write down the quote book, Sydney.
Yeah, I'll make sure to add it right now, Uncle Mike.
Okay. There we go.
How did it go? I forgot it already.
Are you more busy in WNBA season or overseas season?
What's that?
Are you more busy in the WNBA season or overseas season?
Right now we're in that. It's probably WNBA season, only because we're mostly working on your jobs for overseas. While we're also dealing with cuts and things going on here, but we're working on getting everybody placed. April, May, June, July, August, trying to get everybody placed, right? So, yeah, but then again, it's changed over the years, but the summers used to be pretty free. It just sort of depends on the client list, right? The numbers you have. So, and who's playing overseas, which is a whole different thing that we've all three talked about in the past, as far as, because the younger girl coming out now has a different perception. It's not like it's automatic. It was always automatic. You go overseas, period, end of story. And a lot of people now feel like, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. So, a lot of time is spent just explaining to them why that's probably not a good plan. So,
we'll get on to that when we hit the questions. We'll get on to that.
Sorry, I digress.
No. This is a perfect segment. This is a perfect segment. Cindy, do you have any more questions for us?
Yeah, the last one is, from your perspective, Uncle Mike, Agent Mike, What are the top 3 most important characteristics or traits an aspiring pro basketball player can bring to the table or should bring to the table?
Well, of course, first you have to have it. You got to have the game. There's no way around that one. Now, everybody that has game doesn't make it though, right? There's lots of, there's a little luck in there, but talent, of course. There's 134 players in the WNBA, and there's 434 who could be there. No doubt about it.
Yep.
So plenty have the talent, but man, you really have to have the staying power. You have to be locked in and know it's what you want and not waver on that. So talent and staying power, and work ethic, because you can take less talent. If you give me number 3, if you have number 3 more than you have number 1, you still might make it. Because if somebody sticks with it, so many don't stick with it after they failed once, twice, 3 times.
Yep.
I understand that. I understand moving on after, but so many that do, all of a sudden, boom. Look at Rebecca Gardner. What a story.
Yep.
What a story that is. Yvonne Anderson. You're going to see more of those guys because of the salary cap issues. And again, I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but
this is beautiful. I'm loving it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people. Both of you came in. Well, Sid, you came in, boom, boom. You really hit it with LA, and it clicked, and everything worked, and you signed a 3-year deal. Erica came in, drafted, worker, grew, and then you guys, but you figured it out, and you guys both are in that, what I would call that real gray area. Neither one of you are slam dunks in the league, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And the talent level's crazy. So many aren't even close to where you guys are, as far as the path you took, and they have to come in that Yvonne Anderson way or that Rebecca Gardner way. Not many do that, really, because most people just aren't going to hang around and wait that long. That's 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of those years they weren't making any money. So there's got to be a lot of love there, a lot of dedication there, but man, I could keep going on that one.
Beautiful. I hope that there are some young people listening, some people who want to get in the league that listen to this, because he just gave you the 3. I mean, it's not the whole package, but he gave you 3 magic keys to getting in this league and staying in this league. That's probably the hardest part. It's you can get in this league. A lot of people get in this league, but can you stay in this league? Now that's tough.
Yeah.
Look at us, we're still trying to figure it out.
About 5.5 years in, and we're like, trying.
You guys could be like a hybrid, because you've been in an interesting time. The cap's never been like this. So the cap is really the reason that both of you, cap and injuries, right, are the reason you two aren't in right now. With no health and with no injuries whatsoever, my guess is that both of you would be in right now. Okay, both of you would have to have made a team without a guaranteed contract, but the odds are, the way you guys have developed, you would have. So you guys are sort of a separate example, and you're on the outs because of injuries. Let's say that's 80% sure. Where a lot of people, most people, are on the outs just because they played. And with that, I don't think I should probably mention names, but we could go through 40 names like that. Guys, you guys all know who played 3 years, and now they're at the veteran minimum. And I get calls. I don't get calls and say, who do you have because I need help? They say, who do you have at the rookie scale minimum?
Yeah.
At the rookie scale. because that I don't have the money to sign Erica or Sydney. So they're saying, who do you have that I can afford? Because I've given all my money to the 6 players, right? And so that's where we are. And a further, man, we need a whole show on this one. But there's the mentality that now you have the transfer portal, you have college players, transfer portals. I hate if you're about to ask me this later, Erica, but the transfer portal, NIL, all those things. Players come out now, I hear about these deals being made. One girl in South Carolina, forget her name, supposedly she gets some crazy number for every Instagram post because of NIL. Like, just a few Instagram posts is way more than that girl's level as a player, is way more than a whole year of salary overseas. And if she doesn't play overseas, unless you get into the WNBA, unless you're like 5 players this year, maybe 3 this year out of this draft, you're not going to get in the WNBA and be guaranteed to be back there the next year unless you go develop and grow and learn and get better. You only do that overseas.
Yep.
In our present environment, there's not another option. It's about development. So many of these young players I tell them, you don't have an option. If they say, I don't really want to play overseas, I'm like, well, you're not going to play then. You might as well move on and do something else. Respect, no problem. But you might as well move on, because you're not going to go sit out overseas and then show up in training camp and be ready to try when you didn't make it last year. And now there's a whole nother class of players. I really rambled, don't I?
This was the speed round. These weren't even the questions.
This is a speed round. Imagine when you're going slow.
This is a marathon, not a sprint. No, this is just nothing but wisdom. And I hope, the fans appreciate this, players who are listening in, appreciate this, because he's dropping nothing but wisdom nuggets for us
truth bombs.
Truth bombs. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Sydney, I know you have to leave. I know you have to take off somewhere, but we appreciate you coming on, asking these lovely questions that led to a very healthy conversation that's going to lead us into the beginning.
Thank you for having me, Bird. Uncle Mike, always an honor and a privilege. Tex-Mex is down the road. Very excited for it. And I'll be in touch with both of you guys.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Enjoy the podcast.
Thank you, Sydney. Sydney Weiss, everyone.
Bird's the word. Signing off.
See you, Sid. So, Mike, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes. I feel weird calling you Mike. I'm going to call you Uncle Mike now.
Okay.
So like you can call your teacher, by their first name.
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
The first question is it's real lighthearted. I think it'd be perfect to start us, for a lighthearted question, is from @Muffin McGraw, and she wrote in, what's the tea on the $17 for breakfast? Where and how did that come about? So this was a CBA question. So $17, each player gets $17 for breakfast. Can you answer that for us? Because I don't know the answer.
Help me with a age-related thing first. What's the T? Is that spelled correctly? Was that a typo?
No, what's the T means. It's like the gossip. What's the answer? What's the breakdown? What's the load? Everything. The T is all encompassing.
Years ago, we used the word deal.
Exactly. What's the deal? Exactly. What's the deal? That's what I'll say. What's the deal with the $17 breakfast?
What's the deal with the $17 breakfast? Okay, that's really, man, that's deep diving, girl. First of all, Muffin, what are you bored after coaching? Are you like Muffin? Are you like you have nothing else to do but ask these questions?
This is the hard-hitting questions for Muffin right here. She wants to know what the $17 is all about. Because I think her main concern
After
is
Notre Dame, I'm saying she's
this is and Muffin always gets this. This is not everyone. This is not Muffin from the former Notre Dame head coach.
Okay.
Everyone always confuses Muffin with Muffin. She always has to tweet that out. So shout out to both Muffin and
That's
Muffin.
pretty good though. That's pretty good.
But I think her main concern was, I don't want to put words into your mouth, Muffin, but just kind of like, the commissioner put in all this money, or we received all this money, from different Fortune 500 companies, into the league. And I guess just wondering where money is put in. How did the $17 come about? How did they establish what's the proper amount of money to give players for breakfast? Because with inflation these days, $17 is a grand slam.
I mean, really, imagine, Muffin, you're like back in high school and you're arguing with your parents over your allowance number, and you're giving them your logic as far as what it takes you to cover your cost. I think that's what you got here. You got the Players Association here, you got the league here, and they're arguing about what's the right per diem number. Of course, the players, I think the per diem is something around 80 or 90 bucks. So if you're telling me, Muffin, that the breakfast is 17 of that, then you got to assume that let's probably 40 bucks for dinner, and something like 20 something for lunch. So what they've done is they give the players this amount. Usually it's the full per diem, right, Erica? Like you did this for years. Mm-hmm. So you're getting this cash in your hand to go pay for. So they've determined that $17 is the average that is spent for breakfast. Obviously, if you go get a sausage McMuffin at McDonald's, you're saving a lot of money. But if you go to the Waldorf and have a 3-course breakfast, you're losing a lot of money. So it's just an average. They come up with a per diem, and the players usually, unless you're just on a really, really short trip, you're usually going to get that full per diem. Mm-hmm. That's probably didn't you get an envelope full of cash?
Yep.
And for a 3-day trip, and mm-hmm. You knew, okay, they've calculated out how many meals you have. That's what that is. In the old days, sorry, you gotta just shut me down if I start ranting.
Okay.
But in the old days, I had players like through training camp, because you don't get paid in training camp, mm-hmm. and you get per diem every day. So whatever it was, $80 or $90 per day for 3 weeks. A lot of players were saving $2,000 or $3,000 out of the per diem. They just they learned how to work that. So I think you would find, I will tell you this, girl, after all these years, and I don't know if Muffin's a girl or not, but after all these years, I haven't had anybody complain about the per diem. I'll say that.
Okay. $70 is enough. I'm grateful. It's like cash in my hands. And no, you wouldn't even get cash these days. Everything is, through your card, direct deposit. So it's always cool when you get cash in your hands and like, okay, cool. You can either go put it up, you can use it for food, you can really do whatever you want with the money. So I always appreciate the cash.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, next question.
By the way, I had no idea about that number. I would have thought 15, to be honest. So
great question. $17. That's what it is. Great question, Muffin. Okay, this question is from @Tolic. And their question is, what is a typical salary for an overseas season? This is assuming a non-all-star player who wouldn't get $1 million contract.
All right. There's a lot of, first of all, to dispel the rumor, there's no $1 million contracts. Mm-hmm. There's, aside from the team that in Russia, ECAT, aside from that team, and none of those were $1 million contracts net. Okay. Part of what, first of all, if and I know you said aside from all-star, because usually that team is all stars. Mm-hmm. So that this person is asking a question not about them. But first of all, just the way he or she asked the question suggests that there's a supposition that there's a lot of $1 million contracts for All-Stars. There's not one.
Mm.
There's not one. I always hear these numbers for the top, when you take a deal, guys, when you take a deal, just first of all, let's just say you have $100,000 deal. Overseas, that's net. In the United States, that's gross. So out of that 100 in the WNBA, you pay taxes. Overseas, in most countries, you don't. So you're getting that 35% on top of it. So if somebody's making $800,000 net, plus they're getting a tax document that's like cash for another 300 or 400, then they have all these benefits and business class tickets and da. By the time you take, let's say you made 800, someone like Brittany or Breonna Stewart, then it probably comes out to where you could say, oh, I made 1.5, 1.3. All right. But they really don't exist.
Right.
The only place that even possibly ever paid $1 million contract net would be ECAT, and there's not been hardly any of those. So that, first of all, okay, the money's really down, Mr. Tolick or Miss Tolick. The money's really, really down overseas. So a really, really high salary in Europe right now is a couple $100,000. That's why the WNBA is having some success with this prioritization thing, because the money, because of COVID, because of currency exchange issues, because of economic factors, money's gone way down. So when a player's making in the six figures now, that's a top player. And so, so you have a lot of players that you wouldn't believe. You have a lot of players in the WNBA making less than 50 grand overseas. Again, let's say it's 50. If it's 50, you got a $20,000 tax document, and then you have all this other stuff. That 50 could look like 120 when we, depending on the country. So the average, I don't know, but it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not six figures.
That's for sure. Yeah. You were just talking to me about my contract and saying like how good of a contract I have, because numbers are down, with the war is affecting money, all that. So if you do get a six-figure type contract, it's a pretty good contract, especially these days. Your contract's
wonderful, and this is unheard of because of somebody, for the factors that you've mentioned on your show, who is not in the league right now. That's sort of unheard of, but it has to do with what you've done overseas.
Right.
You've done good things in the W, but you've done great things overseas. And so your contract is way above most WNBA players' contracts, way above. And that's because of you. That's because you put in the work and you've shown you can get along with everybody, and you're always going to work hard. You're not going to be a problem. You're going, you are the absolute poster child for how you're supposed to go do it overseas. Now, without your talent, though, none of that matters.
Right.
You have to be talented enough. I'm not saying you can just be a great person and a great teammate and make that money. They have to know you can get it done.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
But you are, and I'm getting emotional talking about it.
Oh my goodness.
No, you are great.
Family.
Everybody, everywhere you go, you are just, people say this is the best we've ever had, as far as the whole package. So, man, I mean, whatever you're doing, I'd like to bottle it up.
Thank you. Well, I like to say shout out to my parents.
Everybody drink it.
Shout out to Sonia and Greg for raising me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. CBA question here, and this is from @CassJ22. Why is there a section called WNBA Team in Canada? Can you explain?
Yeah, I think that
I never heard of this, so I'm intrigued.
Just in case there was I doubt there's going to be an expansion team in Canada, but I sent a male player, Jose Calderon, to the Raptors way back. And it's like we had no idea when we sent him there all the differences in tax law in Canada. And there was a lot of things that they weren't really on top of back then that caught. If you went to Canada, you could pretty much assume you're losing about 15% versus if you were anywhere in the States. So my guess is the section is just thrown in there to cover the bases in case there's an expansion team in Canada to be able to say, okay,
I see.
We're going to counter this tax thing in Canada with this, so that somebody, if they go there, it's not such a huge advantage, it's unfair.
Right.
I mean, disadvantage. It's such a big disadvantage to go to Canada from a salary standpoint. We've got to compensate somehow for that.
Okay.
So I bet you if I went and read that, and I haven't, but I bet you if I went and read that clause, we would see stuff that shows why, how things they would do to compensate for that, because Canada is a great market, a beautiful, beautiful market. They love basketball. Look at Toronto. I mean, but there's some difficulties just from everybody's got to get a work visa. I mean, there's all sorts of differences there. So they have to have something to just cover their bases. I think I'm right about that. Okay. That one I haven't studied for sure.
Okay. That sounds reasonable to me. So hopefully there is a Canadian team coming soon. We're all talking about expansion. So
that would be great.
I hope so.
That, by the way, guys, fun fact, I might give a few of these on here. Maybe the best restaurant city in the world is Toronto. As far as international cuisine at the highest level, you can't find a country that's not represented at the highest level in Toronto. And Toronto's big, but it's not like Chicago or New York or something. So for the size, sorry, I digress.
Canada it is, hopefully expansion team.
I'm a big eater.
foodie in the house.
Foodie,
no, me too. Foodie. So hopefully there's a Canadian team, because I would love to go experience some Canadian cuisine. Okay, next question. At the Sky Show Shy, they asked, I've always been interested in the WNBA sneaker deals. Do the shoe companies reach out, or do the agents have to reach out on behalf of the players? Shoe brand options seem to be growing, Puma, Jordan, etc. Is that actually the case?
Man, that is a question. That's a whole show right there. But I will just tell you that has changed so drastically in the last 5 years. I mean, you have whoever, I mean, from my perspective, doing this so long, then it is not based almost at all on what you do on the basketball court.
Yes.
It's very hard for me to get into that. I've got an all-star over here who doesn't have a shoe deal. And then there's somebody who's dressed a certain way and has a bunch of IG followers, or feels some sort of demographic, you check some box, and you've got both the Jordan brand and Adidas. Half their people aren't even in the league.
Yes.
It's like, and I've got one that's a great young player who's not a starter, and she's a Jordan athlete. So, and I had the only Reebok athlete for a while, and there wasn't any reason based on what she was doing on the court that she had a deal.
Yes.
She's barely making teams. It was based on other stuff. Right. Let's just say
marketability.
That's very frustrating.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating for me to have, top players that can't get a sniff. And I mean, blatantly don't the team, but okay, the question, let me try to get more specific. If they want somebody, usually it doesn't matter if your grandma was the agent. They'll go after that person.
Right.
Based on what they know from them. Sometimes it's based on where you went to college, how you look,
right,
how you express yourself, mostly how good you are on social media. And there's other factors I don't understand. I have picked up a guy, I'm not going to give his name here, but I've picked up a guy I call my shoe guru, because so anybody who's even got a shot at getting a shoe deal, I put him on it.
right.
I hate it. I honestly, like the Adidas people, I don't even know, I forgot the girl's name, but it seemed, I don't know what kind of nepotism she was working with, but she had people that had been out of the league for 2 years. And I'm sitting here with the starter that made the All-Star team, and she's not even calling me back. So I don't know if I'm abrasive or something, but you know your Uncle Mike's not like that. But I don't know. That's a long topic right there. I could,
Yeah.
but like I said, fortunately, I've got someone who can go, okay, and but honestly, I don't get it. It's in a whole area of the new world that I have to get a grasp on.
Right.
But
Short
we
answer.
have people in the Sports Illustrated issue from the WNBA that aren't in the league.
Very true. If they want you, they'll contact. They'll find a way. Short answer. So
you might have to edit this section. I might be a little bit too angry.
We are raw and unedited here, but we can figure it out afterwards. Yeah. Okay. Next question.
If I offended anybody, like, edit that.
Next question. This can kind of lead to just a bigger discussion with prioritization and everything. So this comes from one Nathan Snell. Section 7 of the CBA, I love the so specific, thank you, Nathan, states being fined for missing games starting next season. Are players going to be fined for missing games?
Okay, so all right, that's a great question, because we're right in the beginning of the prioritization stuff hitting. So anybody who has more than 3 years of service, 0, 1, 2. So in their third year, you're already in the penalization phase. So if you're in that year, you cannot play in the WNBA period if you aren't back home ready to go the day before the season starts. Okay. If you are you're fined if you miss any training camp, 1% of your salary for every day missed. And I'm talking about 2023. Now, if somebody's and this, by the way, is confusing. If you're in 0, 1, or 2, okay, let me just take one of my clients, Awak Kuyer from Dallas. Okay, she was drafted and then she played. That's year 0. See, she had 0 years of service, and then basically you have 2 overseas years. It's not 3 full overseas years. You just have, if you're going into your third WBA season, so you can't be fined. And was it Nathan?
Yes.
My internet. It says my internet connection's unstable. You still with me?
I'm still with you.
You can't be fined. You can't be fined if you're in your first 3 years, but you can be salary deducted, prorated based on when you arrive, right? So if you're someone who's exempt from being fined or suspended, you still would lose the salary per day when you're not there. So if you're overseas for 2 weeks, you're going to miss out on that, whatever 1% of your salary is. It's usually going to be a minimum of $700 a day. Okay, so sometimes that prorated deduction looks like a fine, but the fine becomes irrelevant. The fines in the past become irrelevant because you're suspended. If you're not in your first 3 years, you're suspended automatically if you're not there by day 1.
Okay.
So there's a difference.
Let me put it in like simple terms for me to understand. Sometimes you still have to break it down for me. So starting 2023, arriving late to training camp, you'll be fined, quote unquote, fined 1% of your salary. But starting, if you miss any games, you will be suspended, or you will also be fined as well.
Yeah, see, you won't be fined then because you're done. You're not getting anything.
Right.
In the past, the fines were more relevant in the past. But they put the fines in there, but when now the punitive measure is so extreme, you're done.
Right.
Like Erica's right now, you're not under contract. If you go into next season and on your overseas team,
right,
and you arrive one day late and you still don't have a WNBA contract, listen to me, Nathan, and everybody else. This is the big deal about prioritization that really sucks. If you're one day late, you're Erica McCall, you don't have a WNBA contract. You just want a shot. Erica just wants a shot to get on the team when she gets back from wherever she's playing next year, and we both know, but we have to announce it like when she gets back, and she could be back a tad late. She can't be back one day late, or she's not allowed to sign in the WNBA. That's so punitive. That's the problem I have with the prioritization rules. In 2024 and beyond, she can't miss one day of training camp, or she's done. Even if she doesn't have a WNBA contract. And if her sister, DeWanna Bonner, who is under contract with Connecticut, misses one day of the season next year, her contract's gone. She's got unpaid, she's suspended. And the year after that, in 2024, she also has a contract already guaranteed, but it's not guaranteed if she's a day late of training camp. So now, if you're DeWanna and you're at the top of the league, you're in that elite status, it's a little different. Like the problem I have, okay, you know what you've got, right? But if you're other players that are trying to just make it and they need to make a living overseas, can you imagine the player who has a 10% chance of being in the WNBA? Not you, who has a 75% chance of being in the WNBA.
Right.
We're talking about player has a 10% chance and knows they have to make the decision. I can't take a job that's going to have me arriving late, which means they got to it's going to narrow down the job opportunities for them so small that they're going to really have a tough time making a living.
Yep.
That's what's really unfair about the prioritization. Not for the top 4 or 5 players on each roster. It's the rest of them.
And that kind of brings us to Snap Wilson's question. And they asked, this is a question for me. How do players feel about prioritization? It seems like it's a terrible idea. And I'm curious if there's any regret in not taking a harder stance against it. So when the CBA was announced, honestly, the players organization would send us summaries of what it was about, what we want to do. Of course, the main thing that we saw was more money and better playing seats. You know, those are like the big things on our list, at least on my list as a player. And of course, we saw the prioritization, but I guess we didn't really think so much on the impact it would have on, especially a player like me in the middle who needs overseas. I need to go overseas. That's where I get the majority of my living overseas. That's where I improve. And you know, the WNBA is, you know, I'm not saying it's not of importance, but it's like a big dream for mine. But you know, I need overseas. Like I need it. And so I guess I didn't think how much it was going to impact a player like me that needs to go overseas, you know, to go make my living. And then, you know, of course, wanting to come back and play into this league, you know, this dream league that I've always wanted to play in. And so I didn't think about it. The majority of us didn't think about it. Players organization didn't really put so much emphasis on it. So like, hey, I guess, at least for me, in my opinion, we didn't want to read the whole CBA. You know, they just gave us a little rundown of, you know, what we needed to read. And that was kind of it. And I think it's on all of us, that it was our job to kind of speak up more against, what we wanted, because we're the players organization. We decide what we want to do. We have to tell our leaders what we need. And I just don't think that it was something that we truly thought was going to have such a large impact on us. So it's tough. I hate it. I hate the prioritization. It makes it really difficult on a player like me who needs to play overseas and wants to play in the league at the same time. It's just really hard. Mike, do you have any thoughts on it? As an agent, what do you think about it?
I mean, almost all of the people on the executive committee of the Players Association are not overseas players, most by choice.
Yes.
Some of them were enough money, or some of them were on ESPN, or just didn't want to play overseas. And we have a really good Players Association. Okay, they do a great job. So it's difficult because all of us agents are guilty of not really reading the fine print on that. The thing that I just explained to Nathan, and the last thing that, a player, this is my biggest issue with it, because if you've got a guaranteed contract in the WNBA, I can buy prioritization. I can buy it, okay, because you've got a job and you're set. Okay, you're set there. And most of the people that have guaranteed deals also have more opportunities in marketing, more opportunities in league marketing, more opportunities with their own team in a local market. So there's all sorts of financial opportunities for the top 3, 4, 5 players. But again, the players who are trying to make it, this should not be the case. This needs to be changed. And we're all to blame for not seeing it. Yeah. But I can promise you well over 60% of the GMs in the league did not know this rule. Because see, this doesn't help the teams either. Think about it. If you've got the best players who have played more than 3 years in the WNBA, like an Erica McCall, and you have a problem on your roster and you want to sign a good player to come in and help your team win, the best players have been on the best teams overseas, and usually those best teams are playing a little later into the summer.
Always.
So your pool of players available to you is drastically limited. So you're having to choose from people that may have no experience at all. So the GMs, the teams don't like it either. We can make a real quick and reasonable fix on this, but there's a whole lot of stubbornness on this. But there's a lot of people to blame for this getting to where it was. Most of us didn't really see it, and we saw the big numbers. And honestly, I'm the kind of guy that's always like, I'll find a way around that. I'm always doing that. I'll find a way around it. And my way around it was, I've got Erica McCall. She's going to be available. Whenever she's available, I'll get her a job. Well, they saw that coming. They saw Mike Cound coming and said, we're going to make this the rule. So Erica's having to go, I've got to choose a team that's not going to even possibly play into the season. That's tough.
It is. It is. And I want to
solve their issue.
Right. And I just want to emphasize, I appreciate the players organization. I appreciate NECA and Sue and, everyone that was on the board, and because they did work that none of us want to do. So they got to go to those meetings. They're reading the fine print. They're meeting with Terry about, all the ins and outs of what the CBA is. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of reading. I appreciate them. It's a tough job. Don't want it. And like you said, I think it was just on all of us that we just really didn't read the fine print. We thought that, it wouldn't impact us the way that it did. We're here now. It sucks. It's tough. And so I'm hoping for when is the opt-out?
25.
In 2025, we can get this fixed and we can move on from this. And hopefully, there's players, the younger players, who are going to get past those first 3 years, who are going to have to deal with this, won't have to deal with this, in the future. So that's what I'm hoping for, 2025. this will all be done. And, prioritization will be something we don't have to deal with.
Hopefully, but we're going to have a lot of pushback because, the new leadership in the W.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, well, all we need to do is tweak it, though.
Right.
The thing is, the idea of prioritization the timing was perfect because it really required a mentality from players that I don't want to go overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole lot of it now. And also an overseas that is way down. And as I said in one of the first couple of questions, overseas is down. The old days, you wouldn't believe it. It'd be very common to have a whole bunch of $200,000 deals.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of people with $300,000 deals.
Right.
And then you had the people in China and ECAT and a few places that were way above that. Right. So Turkey, but the money's down everywhere. So the timing's real good for the WNBA to push this because their money came up and overseas money went down.
Right.
Now, as that balances back out, we'll see.
We shall.
It will ultimately happen.
We shall. We'll see. Well, last question. I guess it's not really a question, but more just a situation. Let's kind of break down this BG situation, the Brittany Griner situation. What's going on? She's been detained for 101 days.
Wow.
And it's been a long time since we first started the news. So can you kind of break down what's happening? What's the idea of Russia right now? What are players thinking? And I guess what we can do, what I can do as a player, what we all can do, to try to support her and try to get her out as soon as possible.
Okay, my opinion, and I got a call from Brittany's agent the other day to give me an update, and we never connected. But I'm pretty clear on, the thing that needs to happen is just constant awareness, because out of sight, out of mind happens real fast with everything. And so I think, the other day when I heard the interview a couple of days ago with her wife, and at first I wasn't in agreement with something that was said about if it was a male player, if it would be different. And from the standpoint of Putin, I don't think it would be different. I think it might even be worse if it was LeBron, because it would be a bigger pond. It would be a bigger piece. Right now, to me, she's a piece in a chess game. And they want to trade. They want to do a trade. This is my opinion, okay? I don't have any insight on here. I don't think that it's at all even relevant what anybody, her agents or the WNBA commissioner or Adam Silver, I don't think any of that is relevant because this is all about the highest levels now.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys, if you know this, I didn't know it until a friend of mine told me they were proposing trading her for the Doctor of Death. Think about that. The Doctor of Death was supposedly this guy, this arms dealer who was selling arms to South American rebels to bomb the United States. Russia's proposing that we give him up. We have him in a prison. Russia's proposing that we give him up for Brittany, a basketball player. That's way out of line. It's way out of balance. Okay. We have to have a lot of awareness and constant pressure, I think. But again, Bird, I don't know anything. I don't know anything more than you. I was pleasantly surprised to see her in that video and to see her look okay. Because your mind races and you wonder, is she on the floor or on a concrete bed or right? But she looked okay. That sort of felt good. So I think it's just a matter of the politicians coming together. Unfortunately, we're in a time when the atrocities of the Russian government, and we are sending, we're doing everything short of bombing them.
Right.
With the Ukrainian situation. So the relationship hasn't been worse, maybe ever, between Russia and the United States. So the timing of her incarceration is about as bad as it could be to me.
Mm.
And so as far as your question about, I mean, I have a lot of strong personal feelings against sending anybody to Russia before we even get to the fact of how do I tell your parents sending you to Russia?
Yeah.
Right. I hope players say, I can't play there because you are demolishing another country. You're killing men, women, and children at an unbelievable rate. And I can't stand by.
Right.
And support that by going and playing a professional game in your country. A, B, you've got a dictator that's murdering everybody. And C, I mean, I guess there's an element of danger, financial insecurity, instability. There's a bunch of other stuff. So I'm not for sending any player to Russia this year, but I have a lot of Russian friends, colleagues, and I hope that we can come back because it's a great market and it's a terrible market to lose for us. But more important than all of that is that they get their ass out of the Ukraine and quit killing those people. You know, so did I answer that?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, you asked me, you know, if I were to play in Russia, hard pass. I just can't see myself going to play in a country where I have to fear something may happen. You know, like we said, we could all be BG right now. We can all be in her situation. You know, we just never know what could happen in an airport. And so I'm definitely staying away from that situation until everything is safe, at least until I feel safe going to that country and, you know, that government. So it's tough. We're praying for BG. It's been, like I said, it's been 101 days. I know they have a petition out. I believe it's called We Are BG. I'll have my producers put the site on if you guys would like to go sign the petition and want to support her. But it's a scary situation. None of us could even imagine something like this could happen in the overseas world. We're praying for her and you know, hoping that she gets out as soon as possible. Mike, thank you for being on. It's been an absolute pleasure. You were an amazing guest, very informative, very educational. It's been a lot of fun. And thank you for being a guest on the show, Bird's Eye View. It's been an honor. I hope fans and anyone listening in feels a lot more educated on the CBA, overseas, and all that good stuff. So everyone, thank you. It's been a lovely episode. If anyone would like to follow me, you can follow me at birdstheword_24 on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow our podcast Twitter at 1 Bird's Eye View. You can follow us on Instagram at birdseyeView.pod. Mike, you're somewhat avid on Instagram. Where can we find you?
I'm new. I'm trying. At Cound Group Global.
Cound Group Global. That's it. Players, if you're looking for an agent, this is the guy. Uncle Mike is the guy right here. I'm hyping him up. He's the best agent in the game. I'm grateful for him. Thank you everyone for listening in. It's been a blessing. See ya.
Bye-bye. Thank you.